Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into today's video. We're going to have a look at where next 8 to 10 days. In today's video, it takes us to around the 18th of February. So we've got a storm going on today, of course, storm imaging. We'll have a look at some of the wind gusts currently going on across the south. It's a very wild, stormy day across the southern part of the country. But worst of it, very nearly over and done with. I think the winds will stay very strong, gusty into the end of the afternoon, but they should slowly start to moderate into this evening and overnight. So it will stay quite windy even into tonight. After this storm is out of the way, I think the general trend is going to be turning a bit drier but colder through the middle part of the week. And as we get through to the end of the week and the weekend, got a few complications with low pressure starting to come in off the Atlantic, coming into that cold air, and possibly bringing the risk of some rain and snow across parts of the country. So we'll have a look at that in a second. But before I get on with that, just say about the ads. There's links to articles on all the pages at Gazweb. Have a browse, widget, and click through the links if there's any articles that you're interested in. Thanks very much for doing that. So we're going to start off with xcweather.co.uk. You can find a link to this website on the links page. These are the current weather observations, and we're going to look at winds first of all. That's the most dramatic, really, and it's in the south. We've got the strongest of the winds with these big red arrows. So, for example, at Bryce Norton, we've got 23 to 44 mile an hour gusts of wind at the moment. Other places, Headcorn Aerodrome, right down in far southeast, coming out at 37 to 49 miles per hour. And down in the far southwest, Seven Stones light vessel, that's coming out at 56 miles an hour. Some very big wind gusts indeed going on down across the south. It's not just wind, it's also rain we've got going on, and the temperatures are generally quite mild actually. So the temperatures are coming out around 7-8 degrees down across the south, but it feels cold than that, 10 degrees at Shoreham Airport, but it feels colder than that of course in the wind and in the rain as well. And quite a bit of rain you can see here in the north and west particularly. There's a few sunny spells coming through in the southeast at the moment, but I expect more showery bursts to be moving through during the course of what is a pretty wild afternoon. But as I say, things by the end of the afternoon into the evening should start to calm down, and then basically we're looking at a drier phase coming up from the middle part of the week. It won't be completely dry, there will be some wintry showers coming through at times, but overall I think the trend through the middle part of the week will be to turn things drier. Beyond that though, as we get through to the end of the week, as I play in the end of the week into the weekend, it could turn a bit colder, and that could stay with us into the start of next week as well. So these are the 500 millibar height anomaly flowcharts for the next week to 10 days. We've got the e-center graph here on the top, and the GFS is on the bottom. 500 millibars, 80,000 feet is there in the atmosphere. High pressure, low pressure being moved around by a jet stream running above. But let's extrapolate to low pressure. And yellow, red, orange, those sort of brighter colours extrapolates to high pressure. Now, the ECM is placing a ridge out into the central part of the Atlantic, and also to the northeast and the east of us. And they've got a bit of a cut-off low down to the south, so it's a bit of a messy picture. But what's happening is that the jet stream is going a little bit like that. And we are being placed on the cold side of the jet, I think, over the weekend and into the start of next week. So this is the complicating situation for the weekend, because we're going on to the cold side of the jet, but still generally in quite an Atlantic driven flow. You can see that from the lines here coming across the Atlantic and then going southwards. You can see that we are still generally in quite an Atlantic driven flow, but within cold air with the jet stream shifting south. So there will be a risk, or there could be a risk of some snow as we get into the weekend. The GFS is a little bit different. We haven't got as much as a cut-off low down to the south. We've got a trough of low pressure to the east and the northeast, and then still that ridge in the middle part of the Atlantic. And again, the jet stream going a bit like that. We're not quite as far south, I don't think, with the jet stream here, but it's the same idea really, that the jet stream is trending southwards, and there's a trough to the east and the northeast, so it could be getting colder and a little bit more wintry as we get through into the weekend. I think as we get into next week, later on into next week, we will bring these westerlies back through and warm things up again. So probably only a quick colder snap at the end of the week and into the weekend. These are the GFS temperatures and precipitation ensembles. The temperatures first of all, so the red line here is the 30-year temperature average. You see we're going a bit below average really for the rest of the week. Dates from the bottom of the graph. So we're going a bit below average in this zone. Turns a little bit milder over the start of the weekend, then goes colder again into the end of the weekend and start of next week, after which we generally seem to lift the temperatures up quite a bit there as we go through into the second half of next weekend into the second half of February. In terms of rainfall spikes, well, there's more precipitation coming up earlier this week, and then we've got more at the weekend. Now, this area of precipitation just here is quite interesting at the weekend. Just focus in on that one a bit, because this is coinciding with this colder snap that's coming at the end of the week and into the weekend. So not only is it turning a bit colder, although down in the far southeast, the temperatures lift up a little bit just there briefly, but not only is it turning a bit colder at the end of the week, it's also looking quite unsettled. So we do have to think a bit about some snow in parts of the country, potentially Friday, Saturday or Sunday, and sort of pinning it down can be very difficult, but that's sort of a way the GFS particularly is trending at the moment. This is a temperature anomaly for the coming week, so I haven't seen this very often this winter, but we're in blue colours there from the 8th through to 16th of February, so actually coming out a bit colder than average. Most of Europe still looking very mild, but yeah, slightly colder than average week coming up through the coming week, and we haven't seen that very often at all through this very mild winter, and also going a bit drier than average as well. Notice wetter than average across France, so that's indicative of a jet stream starting to shift southwards, and it places us on the cold side of the jet, so it turns a bit drier. We're coming out slightly drier than average for the week, the 8th to the 16th of February, but also cold, of course, as the jet stream moves to the south of the country. So here's the GFS then for Wednesday, and this is when these northerly winds are starting to push in across the country, low pressure clearing away to the east. So cold air will be starting to move down across the country on Wednesday. Going through to Thursday, a lot of dry weather through Wednesday and Thursday with a slight ridge building down from the north. Again, notice the black line here on this chart is the jet stream, and that's gone to the south. So we're within the cold side of the jet, or on the cold side of the jet, and the air is coming down from a more northerly source Wednesday into Thursday. Expect frost early and late, but by day, probably not too bad. We go through into Friday. This is 6 o'clock in the morning on Friday, and we're still in cold air, low pressure trying to drive in off the Atlantic Ocean, and stalling a little bit. Look at this, we've got low pressure beginning to dive down to the south there as we get through into midday on Friday. So we've got an area of rain coming in across Ireland, Wales, southwest England, coming into cold air, possibly turning to snow. And how far north and east this low pressure gets, very uncertain, of course, as always is the case with these low pressures that kind of go on a northwest southeast trajectory, as opposed to their typical southwest to northeast trajectory. So it's always hard to pin the detail down on these features, but there's definitely a stall of the weather system going on there. On its northern eastern flank, wherever that was to set up, there could be some snow on Friday. That low pressure moves more or less through the English Channel, and by midnight on Saturday it's going off in towards the Low Countries, and we're still in cold air, so there's a bit of a battle here really. The mild air is trying to come in off the Atlantic, it's coming up against the cold air, and it's just sliding away to the south with the low pressure. So we're still placed within cold air here, of the winds coming in from the east. Another low pressure having a bit of a go to get in on Saturday. This is 6 o'clock in the evening again on Saturday. This one, at the moment, on this particular run of the GFS model, is being placed across northern France. But of course, the position of this could change. It could be trended northwards. It could be trended even further southwards. But again, it's the same idea of low pressure coming up against this wedge of cold air, stalling and slipping to the southeast, and again it's on the northern eastern flank of this low pressure that we would have the risk of snow. The southern and western flank within the milder sector of the low pressure, that's where we have a risk of, or a greater chance of, just having rain. And then Sunday, another feature is trying to come in. Here it is again, another little low pressure having a go on Sunday. So there's 3 of them, one on Friday, one on Saturday, one on Sunday, all three trying to introduce milder Atlantic air, bring bands of rain in from the west to the southwest, stalling against the cold air and slipping away to the southeast. And this one could again give the risk of snow on its northern and eastern flank. So something like Wales or the Midlands, maybe East Anglia, Lincolnshire, not beyond the realms of impossibility, but you could get a fair bit of snow actually at the end of the week and into the weekend if things were to play out like this. But the question is whether these areas of low pressure will have come off and exactly where they are. They might be pushed further northwards, they might be pushed further south, so they just slide into France and never really impact us. We go through to the start of next week, and we're still quite cold early on through Monday and Tuesday, but by the time you get through to Wednesday, the next Atlantic storm is racing in. So that turns winds back into west of the southwest, turns significantly milder, but also very stormy again. This will be another named storm if it was to come off like this on Wednesday, the 17th of February. Severe gales again to the north and west of the country, with bouts of heavy rain sweeping through. And then we go through into Thursday, day 10, which is the 18th of February. And, well, it's turning a bit colder again then as the winds are going around to the northwest, but still a deep area of low pressure driving the air in off the Atlantic. So it's ready Friday, Saturday, Sunday on this particular run of the GFS anyway, but we have a risk of snow across some parts of the country, not all places, to the south and the east of the south and west, I should say, of this area of low pressure. We'll probably just have rain, or these low pressure systems will probably just have rain. It's to the north and the east of them that will have the greatest chance of seeing some snow. And look at the ECM. It's a bit different, the ECM. So here's the northerly wind coming down on Wednesday. We go through into Thursday and Friday. And whereas the GFS was placing this area of low pressure further south, so it's running through the channel on Friday, the ECMWF wants to take it in more or less across the central part of the country. So this is further north, actually, with this area of low pressure. It implies that for Scotland, Northern England, there could be some snow on Friday, but much of England and Wales, it's probably just outbreaks of rain. We go through to Saturday. The low pressure, again, is just creeping to the east of us. So once more, it's on the northern and eastern side of this low pressure. We've got a chance of snow. That's really for Scotland, Northern England. The bulk of England and Wales probably just gets rain Friday into Saturday. And then that next system, although it is a little bit further southwards here on Sunday, here we are at midnight on Sunday with this area of low pressure. It's a little bit further south than Friday, Saturdays. Nevertheless, it's still further north than the GFS, so it probably again implies that for many parts of England and Wales, this is generally just going to be rain, I would think, with winds from a sort of a southwesterly Atlantic flow coming on the southern side of this low pressure. But it does mean that for Northern England, maybe North Wales, maybe the North Midlands, there could be snow Saturday into Sunday. It's certainly going to be a period to keep an eye on. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it will be a period to keep an eye on, because I think some places could get snow here. It'll just be deciding how far north, how far south these low pressures are coming in. We go through to Monday, start of next week, places in quite a cold northeasterly wind as this low pressure clears away into Germany, so this will spread the cold air southwards and could bring some snow showers into the north and the east of the country. And then go through to Tuesday with high pressure starting to ridge in off the Atlantic. Still cold though, with winds in from the north, so cold start to next week, but middle part of next week and into day 10, which is Thursday the 18th, the winds revert back to the west, so it becomes significantly milder again, with gale force winds probable and bouts of rain in the north and west in particular. So it's quite an interesting pattern that's setting up here. After today's stormy weather, I think the general trend will be to turn it colder day by day. It's not going to be a dramatic plunge in temperature, not going to go sub-zero or anything like that. But by the end of the week, I think it will be quite cold. And cold enough probably for snow, as these areas of low pressure are trying to come in off the Atlantic. It'll be the exact positioning of these low pressures that will be critical. We've got one trying to get in on Friday, a second one trying to get in on Saturday, and a third one trying to get in on Sunday, all coming up against cold air. The exact position of those low pressures will be critical. If they're quite a way north, as the ECMWF plays them, it gives the greatest risk of snow for Northern England, southern Scotland probably, with the bulk of England and Wales just getting rain. If they're further south though, as the GFS is implying, it means certainly parts of central England, Wales, Lincolnshire, East Anglia, maybe a little bit down in the southeast, we might see some snow at the end of the week and into the weekend. So it is a more interesting period coming up, particularly for this very, very mild winter. Going to be a case of watch this space, really, and we'll see how it develops through the course of the week. That's all for now then, and thanks for watching.